right, welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman, coming to you on Thursday, August 1st, the fourth day of training camp for Rutgers football. As always, this episode is brought to you by Knights of the Raritan, the Rutgers NIL Collective. Click on the link in the description of this episode to join their free newsletter, find out what's going on within their group, as well as their coverage of Rutgers athletics and all the upcoming events they're going to have going on during the school year, and of course, how to become a member to help Rutgers student athletes with NIL. Wanted to take this episode as an opportunity to address some very unexpected and I think something we're not used to as Rutgers fans, and that is Rutgers becoming the national trendy pick amongst media as the sleeper of the Big Ten. And it's kind of built some momentum here from Big Ten Media Days. Jake Butt, friend of the podcast, been on twice before, kind of started it on Big Ten Media Day, talking about how positive he was about Rutgers heading into this season. The schedule, obviously, all the players that have come back. We all know the reasons, right? Why we all as fans hope Rutgers can take a major next step this year. There's been shades of 2006 mentioned. Maybe that's getting carried away. Maybe it's not. But to see national media members jump on board has been fun. And if we're being honest, and I admit that, I'm a crazy fan at heart too, it's a little scary. And I know there's some fans that downright don't like it. So let's talk about all that. But also, Jake Butt mentioned it. Dave Revson was also asked about Rutgers, or his sleeper pick. He mentioned Rutgers. You have Kirk Herbstreit now last week on the Pat McAfee show talking about how Rutgers can make a run with that schedule. And he mentioned as an outside shot at the college football playoff. So that raised an eyebrow amongst many. And then you also have Adam Brenneman, who's become a national presence, tight end of Penn State, did a full-length interview with Greg Schiano last year. He had his top 3 picks for surprise teams this year, and he listed Rutgers number 1. So there's been a ton of independent sites like myself, videos on YouTube, if you search, that have also said the same in terms of Rutgers being the trendy pick. And it's nice to see Big Ten people, right? Not just the national media, but people that live and breathe the Big Ten that are giving Rutgers some respect here and looking at the roster, what they have back, what they did last year, what they think they can build on. And obviously the schedule is a big part of that. But it's great to see. As much as us, our superstitions as fans, right? It's being the underdog is fun. And the thing is, Rutgers isn't necessarily going to be some overwhelming favorite, though. So that's kind of it's almost like the best of both worlds. They're getting real respect going into the season. Again, remember, the media now, the unofficial poll with Cleveland.com pick Rutgers 9th in the Big Ten. I think that's very fair. We've gone over that. But, everyone loves to pick their sleepers, right? Their surprise teams. And there is no denying that Rutgers is set up to potentially be that surprise team. Now, a lot of things have to happen. There's a great interview that's making the rounds on YouTube, and Kings of the North is a great Big Ten site that does coverage, and they had an interview with Greg Schiano from Big Ten Media Days, and Greg was talking about the offense and obviously the decision to move on to Ethan Kaliakmanis from Gavin Wimsatt, and it was probably the most insightful he's been in terms of the situation. The host talked about the need to pass downfield, right? And we know that Rutgers needs to move the ball through the air. But Schiano really went back and said it's not even about getting it downfield. It's about completing those short passes, being more efficient, being more accurate, being able to move the chains. He didn't say that phrase exactly, but that's what he meant, was to be able to move the ball in the short passing game. And felt in training camp that Kaliakmanis was much better in terms of being accurate in that regard, and talked about leaving so many yards after the catch on the table last season in terms of their analysis of what they felt. And that, coupled with these great expectations now in terms of potentially maxing out, right, in terms of their schedule, it does give you the thought that it's possible, it's realistic in a way, because we're not talking about Rutgers needing to throw 400 yards a game. They're not built for that. That's not what they want to do, even if they're just not built for that. And you have Monangai back. You have Sam Brown. Shiano also mentioned Jashawn Benjamin. I mean, that's a very solid top three. But if you can incorporate, and we've talked about this as well, and obviously Dremel's back in the slot, but Demir Miller, who Shiano essentially said is just different in terms of everything else they have. Kings of the North Host was very high on Nassim Brantley. And they talked about, is it a fortuitous break that although Brantley wasn't available last year because the idiocy of the NCAA not making him eligible and now making him eligible this season, having him this year could work out as a blessing. You also have Ian Strong back year 2. Dremel, I mentioned. I mean, that's a potentially very strong top 4 receiving core. And then we've talked about the youth. Obviously, Corey Duff, KJ Duff, Ben Black, 2 freshmen that could make an impact. Fama Teray has shown signs. So there's a lot of excitement there in the receiving core as itself. Now Calic Man is coming in. But if they can take that step forward, that is kind of the missing link, per se, in terms of where this offense can go from not a good offense to a very capable offense pretty quickly. And it's a realistic jump. It's not a pipe dream, right? In terms of, well, if Rutgers could just have 2 or 3 big hits down the field every game, I don't know if that's realistic for most college football teams. But if you're talking about, hey, can Rutgers complete 70% of their short yardage passes? Can they get anything out of their running backs in the pass game? Can they have a close to 50% conversion rate on first down passes? Third down conversion rate, can they amp that up simply because they have shorter third down situations, because they're able to move the ball a little bit? Can that open up things for Kyle Monangai and Sam Brown and Jashawn Benjamin, because there is actually a threat of the pass? It can change things dramatically, but you're not doing anything dramatic to make that dramatic change. You're just being more efficient. You're being more accurate. So that point in that interview to me jumped out in terms of perspective of these now great expectations as Rutgers potentially being this surprise team that really wouldn't be a surprise anymore, because everyone's looking at it on paper. By the way, the Kings of the North guy cracked me up because he told Shiano he wasn't going to mention where he sees Rutgers finishing, and then at the end threw in that he sees Rutgers going 7-2 in the Big Ten. I have a survey going on Twitter, a poll. What do you think will be Rutgers' best win of the season? At Nebraska, at Virginia Tech, at USC, or Wisconsin, or Washington at home. And, it got some interesting responses. Right now it's about 30% each for Virginia Tech, and then also Washington, Wisconsin. Obviously, Washington, Wisconsin, the most realistic because they're home games. Rutgers defending home turf. That's a whole nother kind of topic we could talk about soon, but that's obvious, right? But those 3 road games at Virginia Tech, at USC, and at Nebraska all offer big opportunities for this team to not only generate that high win total, but also nab some signature wins. Whether those are ranked wins or not remains to be seen. Rutgers, the longest drought in college football, Power 4 in terms of a ranked victory, 2009. Obviously, USF was the last time. Will they break that or not? It's relevant, but it's irrelevant also in terms of just play the games that are on your schedule and win. It's all going to come down to execution, but it's exciting. And as fans, we should embrace it, right? The instincts, like I said, I have my moments where I'm like, can people just stop talking about Rutgers in a positive way, right? In terms of not just a positive way, but being that trendy pick to be the surprise team in college football in the Big Ten. And yes, it makes us nervous, right? But we all have to kind of put that aside. Don't wait for the other shoe to drop. There are so many things going in the right direction for this team, and a lot has to happen. A lot has to happen still. And obviously, they have to stay healthy. I talked about that in my podcast last week in terms of 5 things that need to progress in training camp. And one of them is get out of training camp fully healthy in terms of you're too deep. But expectations are a good thing because progress has been made. And I think the hopeful part is that for them to make that jump, it's not so unrealistic in terms of obviously the schedule we've talked about, but also the fact that what they need to do on the field, it doesn't feel like they're that far away from doing that, right? The defense has to take another step. Shiano's talked about the front 4 generating pass rush naturally, consistently, without having to scheme and blitz and all the time. And they'll still do some of that, of course. But if the front 4 can be consistent in terms of wreaking havoc, creating pressure, that's going to go a long way in terms of moving the defensive forward and being a legitimate top 20 defense nationally, top 3rd defense in the Big Ten. And then offense, be more accurate in the pass game. And a lot can come together pretty quickly. So those 2 things combined, if you look at those 2 elements, aside from staying healthy, the idea that Rutgers can't make that, the idea that they can make that leap, right? 8, 9, 10 wins, who knows? I know college football playoff, there's been talk about that. I mean, 12 teams now. Big Ten will likely get 3 to 4. There's no East Division. I mean, it's almost like if you could be that 3rd team that slides in and doesn't go to the Big Ten championship, does that boost your chances down the road? That's a whole nother discussion. But the point is, hope is thick in the air for Rutgers football and for a program, for a fan base that has been starved of success, grieved for years. Let's just have fun with this. You know, we could be nervous too. That's okay. But don't wait for the other shoe to drop. Embrace the fact that the national media is jumping on the bandwagon. And there's opportunities here. I mean, that schedule, that first half, there's so many ways it could go. I've talked about all the 50-50 games. You know, there's no sure wins on the schedule other than Howard and Akron, but there's no surefire losses like there have been in the past. And this team's going to have to come together. But again, it does feel, let's just say, maybe Rutgers is due. Maybe that first decade in the Big Ten, all the struggles, everything that's happened over the years is the perfect storm brewing in Piscataway. Let's hope. There's real reasons to believe it. And the national media wants to name Rutgers their sleepy, their trendy sleeper pick. So be it. Enjoy it. And expectations going into the season, we'll talk about that throughout the next month now. In the month that Rutgers will open the season now, August, unbelievable. We're 4 weeks away from today. Rutgers will kick off the 2024 season against Howard. A lot to talk about ahead of then. And stick with us for all our coverage. Thank you for everyone that has already. And just think that this is fun. That's what it's supposed to be. So let's enjoy it. And let's dream for the moon. It may not happen. And I do think the last thing I want to say is, as a developmental program, you are now at that last stage of development where you need results. And that is so critical, not only to what we think the opportunity is this season, but also what it means for the future of this program in terms of 2025 and beyond. Recruiting is really clicking right now. But I think if you're bill yourself as a developmental program, which Greg Schiano does very adamantly and also it makes sense and it's true. You have a senior laden team, a veteran laden team, guys that have been in the program 3-4 years. You've developed. Now it's time for results. So whether they reach the moon or not, 10, 11 wins, college football playoff, you can't face plant here. And I think they have the college football gods on their side in terms of being due, right? But 8, 9, 10 wins, we could debate, right? What bottom line expectations are. That'll be a whole nother episode. But Rutgers has an opportunity here, and as a developmental program, you gotta show results. And that doesn't mean they have to meet the national trendy sleeper pick and win 10 games. But I think 8 games or more, and they're cooking with gas moving forward past this season. So a lot of ramifications there. But as I said, we're 4 weeks out from the season. Embrace expectations. Embrace the media being buzzworthy about Rutgers. It's fun. And through all we've been through as a fan base, it's easy to clench up and say, no, stop talking about it. No, that's not good. It is good. It is good. And you have no doubt that Greg Schiano, the coaching staff, and this team, they're focused. They're not going to buy into the hype. If they don't meet or exceed expectations this year, it's not going to be for a lack of preparation. It's not going to be a lack of focus. It's going to be for a lack of execution. So they're going to focus on that and let the chips fall where they may and buckle up for a great ride. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful Podcast.